Okay, I know I talk a lot about why I despise Skylanders as a business model and series, but because of recent events, I think it's finally time to make a cohesive video about where my hatred comes from. What recent events, you ask? Why, the most egregious of them all. On June 1st, 2016, Activision announced Skylanders Imaginators, which is going to be the 6th entry in the series in the span of about 6 years. That's a Skylanders game every single year. Now that in and of itself is a problem. Annual releases of the same series is something that tends to bother me because when that happens, most of the time, the developers start taking shortcuts. They start reusing assets, engines, and so on, making a mockery of what came before it. A lot of the time, annual releases like Call of Duty, for example, are half-assed and made to just capitalize on the success of its predecessors. The common business model seems to be to keep the hype train rolling so you can rake in as much cash as you can before this figurative well dries up. This is precisely what Activision has been doing with Skylanders. They want the series to remain in the limelight. They need new toys to keep pumping out so kids, collectors, and parents keep buying them and buying them. For someone who's invested in Skylanders as a game series, I imagine they would see this as sort of scummy and insulting. I know if I kept up with the series only to see its creators pumping out sequel after sequel every year, it'd get pretty tiring. Even though I'm not a fan of the series, this still bugs me. This sort of greedy behavior rooted in Skylanders is like a tumor in the gaming industry. It paves the way for other developers to follow in Skylanders' footsteps and lose any emotional attachment to their product by creating a hollow shell for the sake of making money and money alone. That even brings into question the whole gimmick of Skylanders that bothers me. It's the entire toys to life concept. Before you use the argument that I'm a large proprietor of amiibo and thus my argument for disliking Skylanders toys is invalid, you should know that I stopped collecting them some time ago. I only really invested in amiibo because Nintendo successfully tugged at my nostalgia for their classic characters. There were times I purchased amiibo for their in-game effects, but those cases were few and far between. As much as I like them, I'll admit they add nothing substantial to one's gaming experience. Skylanders toys are about as pointless as amiibo, but even more worthless. I, for one, could not care about any of these characters you see on screen now. I don't think I can even recognize a single creature. Look at any box art for Skylanders and you'll know what I'm talking about. What's even the purpose of collecting these figures if they mean almost nothing? You could argue they get their meaning from the games they're featured in, but riddle me this, contrarian, what is a unique characteristic of a Skylander called Slam Bam? Better yet, what does the Skylander Warnado look like? Please, if you're going to make the argument that all the Skylanders are distinct and special, be able to at least recognize them all. See, the Skylanders lack charm and are just husks of lost potential. If there were a few Skylanders with actual simplistic character development, perhaps I wouldn't be here saying that every Skylander is generic and boring. Furthermore, the fact that Activision keeps birthing these abominations only makes the Skylanders characters more unimaginative and lifeless. Additionally, just to play a Skylanders game requires you to have some of these toys, which are then magically morphed into the game world. This means you have to keep these worthless pieces of trash around, and it even incentivizes you to buy more figures that unlock more and cool Skylanders content. Spoiler alert, these figures add almost nothing to the games, just the ability to play as different flat characters that ultimately don't change anything about the gameplay. That begs the question as to why Activision even created this toys to life genre in the first place if the toys do almost nothing worthwhile to modify the content of the game. It just seems like another way to trick kids and collectors into buying more of their Skylanders junk. I guess I can see the appeal for those who enjoy collecting them just for the sake of collecting them, but personally, it's a very greedy business practice and one that makes me hate Skylanders as a whole. As for the kids that are drawn into buying them, they're definitely getting screwed over. Not only do I hate the concept of Skylanders, I also don't enjoy the recent games. For this video, I put myself through the torture of playing all 5 Skylanders installments for at least 3 hours to get a taste of each game. Apart from that, I've never truly finished a Skylanders game or played one for more than an hour aside from Spyro's Adventure, of course. Skylanders Spyro's Adventure is a game that I abhor based on its principle and its effect on the Spyro series. Removing that bias, Spyro's Adventure is actually not that terrible. I would even dare to say it's okay. The game's nothing special and it's not revolutionary and it doesn't do too much to stand out from the abundance of collectathons I've played in my life, like, I don't know, Spyro 1, 2, and 3 and so on. Nevertheless, I would be lying if I said I didn't get any enjoyment out of it. Then there's Skylanders Giants, which is about as stale as expired crackers and the Pokemon franchise. I kid. But I'm not kidding when I say Giants is pretty boring and not fun. Gameplay is mundane, the plot isn't compelling at all, and nothing got me engaged in actually playing it. Unlike Spyro's Adventure, there was no drive to keep playing other than the fact that I had to. Giants is simply not enjoyable, and I guess I should have seen it as a bad omen for things to come because Skylanders Swap Force is actually much better. See, I just pranked you all. I'm sure you all expected me to hate Swap Force, but this is actually the best one purely because the figures did something new. This time, you could switch out body parts and create custom creatures along with different abilities to optimize your Skylander. Sure, the rest of the game is kind of the same as before, but at least it tried something different. At least characters are somewhat distinct. Trap Team, on the other hand, is very dull, lacking any sort of originality. This is about where the fatigue of Skylanders began to settle in. My body began to physically reject any more Skylanders than I already had ingested. It was too much for one person to handle, so I had to stop around the 2-hour mark because of how monotonous it was. Traps don't even add much of anything to the gameplay, so I don't even know why Activision decided it should exist. It's almost like they were running out of ideas, which is evident in Skylanders Superchargers. Taking inspiration, or as I like to call it, copying, from Mario Kart, Garfield Kart, and Sega All-Stars Racing, Superchargers is not your traditional generic platformer, but rather it's a kart racer infused with gimmicky platforming sections. This one's not too thrilling, so I kinda just powered through my 3 hours, which was a slog, mind you. All in all, every Skylanders game seemed to mesh together, creating one glob of mediocre, unchallenging, boring platformers that exploit the toys-to-life concept. I couldn't find much enjoyment out of the series, and it wasn't just due to the fact that I hate the toys, what they did to Spyro, the annual releases, the declining quality of games, the greed, and so on. My hatred of the franchise is a culmination of all these aspects, but mainly it's because of what the series has become. A dead horse for a selfish corporation to beat money out of until it decomposes. And that's sort of funny considering that Activision has said that Skylanders has not met their expectations in terms of sales for the last 2 games. So maybe soon we'll see an end to Skylanders. Maybe then Spyro will be released from his shackles and the toy-to-life business model will rightfully disappear. One can dream, friends. One can dream. But as always, if you disagree or agree with me, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching and take care. Have a wonderful day and goodbye.